first job out of PhD was basically everybody's dream job, that job at Google. Then you spent some time at Meta.
8 years in at Google, I went to Meta's Reality Labs, and it was interesting because I always loved the metaverse and VR. I worked on a team called Avatars. Back at Google, I am a Gen AI PM. We work as part of the Google Home team. There's a lot we do with LLMs, like super cool features we're going to enable.
One of the hardest parts of being an AI PM and just building AI products in general is thinking through your product strategy.
AI doesn't really change the strategic thinking. We always come down to thinking about the mission, what you're trying to achieve, why, who it's for. And then, is AI going to help me get there faster, better, sooner? If I don't adopt AI, am I going to stay behind compared to other folks? You need to be 100% sure you want to adopt AI and get into this whole process, because this can change everything.
Welcome to today's episode of the Product Growth Podcast. This is one of those guests that I've been thinking about and talking about since the podcast launched last year. I'm really excited to have on somebody who's been an AI product manager at Google, at Meta. She also is an AI PM teacher. She's taught at Harvard Business School. She teaches an AI PM certification on Maven. Nika, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Aakash. It's great to be here.
I think we first chatted about 3 years ago. We actually hopped on a Zoom, kind of like today's format, to meet. So it's very cool 3 years later to have you on the pod.
Thank you. And I think I was just starting with my courses, and I was like, oh, here's how I'm thinking about this. So it's great to catch up and see how things have evolved since then.
Yes, both of us have stuck in this game. I think there were a bunch of people I met in that time period who no longer do it, but here we both are. Where I want to start is your AI PM experience at Google. Talk to me a little bit about how your role has evolved and what you're up to now.
Sounds good. So I loved computers and computer science growing up. And I said, you know what? I love it so much that I should do a PhD in it. So I did a PhD in machine learning in 2011, ages ago. And I got the scholarship from Google to do it. And because of that, I met a lot of people working there, and, I got mentors. So I always, as I was finishing my PhD, I always kind of had Google as kind of, the most exciting thing. I finished my PhD and I joined the speech team, which essentially could translate sound into text. And they needed people to kind of help out with this whole process, and also to figure out what on earth are we going to do with it. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, especially if it's your first job, to get into this environment with amazing, smart people and try to figure out, how to evolve, let's say, this amazing piece of tech and bridge it with users' pain points.
So you first job out of PhD was basically everybody's dream job, that job at Google. And then you spent some time at Meta.
Yes. So 8 years in at Google, I went to Meta's Reality Labs, and it was interesting because I always loved, the metaverse and VR and AR, and I wanted to see how kind of, a company that really specializes in this builds products. And yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I worked on a team called Avatars, which is our embodied representation in the metaverse. And yeah, it was really, really good.
And what's your role now at Google?
And I'm back at Google. I am a Gen AI PM, and we work as part of the Google Home team. And there's a lot we do with LLMs, like super cool features we're going to enable.
Trust isn't just earned, it's demanded. Whether you're a startup founder navigating your first audit or a seasoned professional scaling your GRC program, proving your commitment to security has never been more critical or more complex. That's where Vanta comes in. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance needs across over 35 frameworks like SOC 2 and ISO 27001. Centralized security workflows, complete questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and proactively manage vendor risk. Vanta can help you start or scale your security program by connecting you with auditors and experts to conduct your audit and set up your security program quickly. Plus, with automation and AI throughout the platform, Vanta gives you time back. so you can focus on building your company. Join over 9,000 global companies like Atlassian, Quora, and Factory who use Vanta to manage risk and improve security in real time. For a limited time, my listeners get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/Aakash. That's vanta.com/AAKASH for $1,000 off.
If you're enjoying this episode with Marilee, you'll love her course on Maven, today's podcast sponsor. The problem with most courses online, like Udemy, is there's no live component, and the instructors aren't experts in their fields, they're professors. At Maven, you get direct live access to experts and operators from the world's best tech companies. You can't get that access anywhere else, in any university, and you usually can't find them on YouTube either. I've featured so many of Maven's experts in the newsletter and podcast for that reason. To help you out, I've put together a collection of courses I recommend at maven.com/x/Aakash. This includes courses like AI prototyping for PMs, product sense for PMs, and getting an AI PM certification. Visit it now at maven.com/x/AAKASH. Got it. So what is Google Home taking advantage in terms of Gen AI right now? Because obviously Google Home actually came out in an era before these LLMs had made a big splash. I imagine that the pre-GPT-3 inner workings of Google Home and post-GPT-3 really dramatically changed the product vision and what's going on in the company.
Yeah, essentially making your home smarter with smarter functionality. For example, things like, hey, which room is my cat at? This sort of thing. Like if you think about it from a technical perspective, this is absolutely feasible. But on a day-to-day, you wouldn't consider that, oh, wait, this is something I can do now. So this is the type of thing the team is enabling.
So you've been at these two giants of big tech working as an AI PM. How do the two differ?
It's shocking how different it was. So let's see. Well, also my role was different. So at Google, I find that I work way closer with, the people actually training the models, so research scientists, and, we look into the quality and evals and this sort of thing versus at Meta, I find my role was heavier on product reviews and strategic decisions and leadership. So I guess one was way more hands-on with the actual, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and build versus strategy, alignment. Oh my God, so much alignment because there's just so many different teams. So this whole cross-functional collaboration skill set, it was something I had to learn how to, I had to flex it. But yeah, it was both, wonderful and very rewarding. I think I like more the rolling up the sleeves and getting things done side of things. But I'm sure you can get that at Meta too. It was just that my role didn't have that as much.
How technical do you get on a day-to-day basis with the researchers?
Someone was asking me exactly this question, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to put this very simple graph together. So there's different types of AI PMs. Number one, you can be the AI builder PM, which is what I just described. Day to day, you work with the scientists, help them build kind of the magic that empowers all these smart features. Or you can be an AI experiences PM, which is more like, okay, let's leverage what the first category of folks are building and mix and match and create an experience that, is going to add value directly to users. The builder may be more back end. AI experiences is more, consumer facing. And I added this third category there, which is, no matter what you're doing, if you're in AI or not, you gotta be AI enhanced. It's not an option anymore. It's kind of a necessity for us to survive in this. So yeah, on the AI builder side, things are more technical. You need to have some technical background, meaning at least familiarity and awareness of, the AI lifecycle. On the AI experiences PM, I feel it's easier to get in, especially if you already, let's say, here's an example. Let's say you were in health tech before, okay, a PM, non-AI. And then there is a startup hiring for someone building an AI agent for diagnostics or something like that. It's easier to make the leap from non-technical to AI PM in that domain because you have that expertise already. But going straight to the AI builder is kind of tougher, I will say. So AI builder needs a lot of technical background. AI experience is less so. But of course, it doesn't mean you can just go directly to AI Builder or AI experiences.
So you're currently an AI builder PM?
Yes, I am. And I realize no matter how many years you've been doing it, I'm still learning. Like new things are coming up every single day. And I just love it. It's challenging. I think I identify more with it. Even though, I've done experiences for like 70 years or so. And the thing is, there are some roles where this is sequential. So you may start as a builder and evolve into experiences. Or in a startup, you may kind of do juggle both back and forth. But in bigger tech, I think they're more crisper, like the differences.
Day to day, how much are you really getting into the architectural decisions of what a researcher might be doing or the work they do? How technical are those conversations?
There's the AI lifecycle, and you're usually managing, I don't know, like three, four different products, let's say, and each of them is in a different part. So according to which part the product is at, you are needed more or less, let's say. So if you're still kind of in the early stages where you're scoping things out, your work is just full of meetings and decisions and trade-offs and all these things. But if you're more on the, okay, we've trained our model, here's, what things look like. Should we move forward? Should we retrain? Should we find more data? um you're it's less more about you, it's more about, okay, the entire team kind of chiming in. But there are parts where, during actual model training, you don't do much there because it's more like a waiting game, let's say. So yeah, it depends on where you're at, but I will say it's never boring, especially if you handle, multiple products. It's kind of like you need to context switch, on every single meeting, because it's like, okay, wait, where are we at, what are we doing here? And sometimes even the products themselves is different teams. So yeah, there's a lot of context switching.
Got it. So as a PM, it sounds like you might be working with 3 or 4 different AI research teams, not even just one squad?
It depends on how the company is set up. Sometimes I see a structure where you're working directly with a research scientist that's handling two, three different, junior groups of folks. So you only liaise with one, which is the best case scenario, right? You work with them. Or you may have different pairs of engineers and scientists to work with. Or sometimes you liaise with an AI PM of another team and they work with a scientist and engineer. So it depends on the scale, on the company. But on its core, it's essentially you, a scientist, and a software engineer that does the integration, and this kind of wonderful triangle, let's say, of trade-offs and decisions and scoping and a lot of data to go through.
Got it. And when it comes to the data, how much of that is the research scientist handling versus you as a product manager handling?
Very good question. Well, the thing is, you need their input when you're scoping out because you need to understand, how much data is it going to take in order to reach a minimum viable quality, let's say. And then there may be a data collection required. So usually there's actually a program management team that might take care of that. So like I've seen companies that have massive operations where they do the data collection themselves. I've seen companies that acquire data from third party companies. I've seen companies that just synthesize data and, try things out with the model without looking into quality in the first place. So yeah, it's about the strategy of the company, the resources, are you in a rush to get things going? Are you just testing things out? So there's different strategies, but I will say though, I had a student in my AIPM bootcamp that we had this exact conversation and he got so excited and he created an agency that does collections. And he now has contracts with all the big tech companies and he collects data for their models for them. And he's doing so well. So it's interesting how, if you think about the ML ops side of things, there's so much going on that you need to stay ahead of everything, but it doesn't mean that you as a PM is gonna do the actual collection.
What does a day in your life look like? How many meetings do you have? What types of meetings are there?
Very good question. So I work a lot with East Coast, meaning that, from 8:30 or 9, there may be some product review, there may be some weekly sync with a scientist team. So usually for, like a large scale product that may take 2 or 3 years, in the making, you are going to have a sync with leads. And then you're going to have a sync with, the entire team where you kind of, communicating the information and answer any questions and things like that. But I think it's a mix of weekly syncs and more relaxed product reviews where you just reach out to leadership and have a discussion, reach out, get their opinion, or get input, go, no goes, etc. So there are at least one or two, I will say, product reviews a week, but it's nothing scary. I know a lot of people hear about a review and like, oh God, how much do you need to prep? And it's not. It's more of a conversation rather than an actual test or anything like this. I try to limit my like I block my calendar when I want to do heads down work. I want to say there's at least a 2 hour block a day where I actually do, write and comment on docs and stuff like that. But the rest, on the most part, is meetings.
So it's not fundamentally different from any other product manager job, but it's in the domain of AI.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I guess you meet mostly with engineers and scientists versus other PMs to align, but yeah, it just depends on the product you're running and the company as well.
So you've been an AI PM longer than most people, where a lot of people, I think they might be a year or two in. If you were to go back to the version of you a year or two in, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I was doing it before it was cool. That's what I like saying. Well, the thing is, early on, again, recent grad from a PhD, I jumped into this. I hadn't realized that not all PMs do the same work. So, I was, there, I had mentors and we had like meetups and community meetups and all these things. And I realized, wait, what you guys are doing sounds different than what I'm doing. And you guys are assessed by how many lunches are, how much you've lunched versus me, where it's more like, what did we learn? What milestone did we hit? What progress did we make? And I was kind of trying to understand what was going on. And I had asked my manager at the time, and they explained to me, hey, it's PM from PM can be wildly different, but AI PM, especially in 0 to 1, it has almost nothing to do with other functions. So I would tell myself, this is different, and it's fine that it's different, and you can find your identity through it and embrace it. And one day you'll be teaching about this, and you'll be super happy you've been in this domain for 12 years. So
I think the researchers segment, that's the sort of stakeholder group that you have talked about a few times, which is pretty different from your average product manager, where I think that's often replaced with a product designer. How should PMs better interact with researchers?
So I used to be a data scientist, and I know kind of, how to protect them, how to not waste their time on meetings and all these things. So and how to convince them when it comes to, new ideas. So I wrap all these things under a skill that I call, technical influence. So you want them to partner with you. You want them to respect you. You want them to see that, okay, you're bringing in the table the product thinking that they need so that you as a pair can create better, more impactful products. Number two, you want to demonstrate you have AI awareness. So they can just talk about, their challenges or demonstrate, their metrics and how they're progressing and you not understanding what's going on. Um, what I did in the past that helped is I asked to shadow them. And I literally went for a week and I was just sitting next to them and I saw what they do on their day to day, what the challenges are, what the conversations are like. And I truly understood what matters and what doesn't matter. And I guess the biggest learning is never go to them without having some conviction about a new feature. For example, hey, let's do this. Not because it's my gut feeling, but more like, let's do this because here's the conviction. Here's another product that did it and it worked out well. And they understand that, okay, you have the vision and you're a great leader and they'll help you execute on this and create the magic that powers your vision, let's say.
Is there a sense of needing to do that 1 week shadow, even if you haven't been a data scientist? Would you recommend that more PMs do that?
That's a mistake I made when I joined. I think my first job, the first days, is like, okay, I'm technical. I understand what other people are doing, but you don't understand anything. Every company is different. Every team is different. They have different processes, different tools, different every single thing. So I learned this quickly that I know that I know nothing, and actually telling people this is so great because they realize, okay, this person is transparent, and we're gonna help them, um, learn, and they want to learn too, instead of having someone cocky that's like, hey, I know everything. So that's the advice I give to people. Don't be afraid to shadow, and people appreciated it so much. Like it was wonderful. They were like, hey, do you have any questions? They shared the code with me. They let me train some of the models. And I realized what it takes in a big tech company, not just doing it in your PhD lab, right? And it was a great experience.
I think some people might be wondering, how do they explain this to their boss?
Yeah. I mean, your boss wants you to learn and upskill. And if anything, if you tell them they're going to be introducing you to people that you should go ask to shadow, I think it's great. And it's not like you shadow and you do nothing, right? You shadow, you take notes, you improve processes. It's part of your job, let's say. And I mean, maybe you don't need to shadow 40 hours a week and you shadow, I don't know, like an hour a day, but I think it's a great thing to do. I often recommend that for people that tell me, "Hey, how do I transition to AI PM?" And I say, just ask an AI PM if you can just shadow for an hour, see what they do, and see if you can jump in and add some value at some point. Because you start, dipping your feet in the water and getting some experience, and eventually decide if it's what you want to do or not. Because it's not for everyone. That it has a certain factor, a certain uncertainty that is not always great.
When you're interviewing as an interviewer at these big companies, what skills do you look for in AI PMs?
The first thing is passion. You want to see people that are so excited about what's going on and the potential and, with Gen AI and all these things. So if you have someone that really can demonstrate that they know what's currently happening in the AI landscape, like, there's a new model that came out and multimodality and agentic AI and all these things, like you want to see that they're so passionate that they know so that they're aware. Um, and sure, I've had people that, would say, I'm excited to learn and I'm excited to jump in, but you want to see that they already have kind of the skill set regardless of interviews. So, passion is very important. Awareness about AI. So if you ask someone, hey, what's unique about AI? What are the unique challenges? And they don't have anything to say versus demonstrating that they have the awareness to say, hey, that probabilistic nature of AI can make things tricky. And, we really need to think about, how to tackle things as leaders. Um, and then, just the hustle. Like I find that AI PMing needs a lot of hustling, and it's kind of the rise of the senior IC era. I see a lot of folks that are very, very senior, and you're gonna go to the scientist and then collect the data and support these people and the trade-offs and product. So you need to see that. There's a lot of people that were very senior in other companies that I see joining as ICs, and it's like, oh God, wait, how do we do this? How do we roll up our sleeves? So you want someone that already knows how to do this and is excited to do this.
Is there something in particular about AI that makes it more likely to have super senior ICPMs than other types of PM?
Um, I don't know how to answer this. Well, sometimes I don't know. I find that some people don't really understand AI yet, especially more traditional folks that have not had the time to study about AI, and you find people that are more in the weeds, understanding what's going on and what needs to happen. So you're kind of the boss of yourself, if you will, and you want to get the work done rather than delegating. I don't know.
What I find is that if you think about an average AI product, there's less of a UX component or that comes in later in the process in that life cycle you described, where you first have to build the model and you have to get the data and you have to validate it. So all of these things that happen before end up meaning that there's a higher weightage towards research and engineering activities than product management and product design activities. So that to me is one of the reasons that we're seeing in AI companies and groups within big tech companies that they have way more senior ICs.
I think you're describing the experimentation culture. There's a ton of making a hypothesis, testing it out, figuring out if, it makes sense to move on. So, um, because of this, yes, the experience part comes towards the end. But that's for the AI builder side of things. If you're the AI experiences, I will say, if anything, UX and UXR is so important to add early on, just so that you can have as much conviction as possible to move forward, in order not to waste resources, money, and minimize the risk, really.
Yeah, critical for experienced PMs. As someone with a PhD in computer science, specifically AI, how important has that been to your effectiveness as an AI PM?
Wow, very good question. I think it's been a blessing and a curse. It's been a blessing because I felt the confidence that, okay, I got this and I have the background. Like I can make it happen. But in reality, on the day to day, it's like I had to forget what I know. I had to take my previous identity out and say, hey, I don't do this part anymore. I shouldn't jump in and say, oh, I will do this way, or here's what I did as part of my PhD. So I had to tone down that part of my brain, let's say, and focus more on strategy and vision. And that did not come naturally to me. But I was so lucky. I had wonderful mentors that helped me, and there's so many communities about product management. So I had to jump into the pure PM skills in order to be able to balance these things out. But for the most part, it has helped me because it helped me start in this field 12 years ago. Without the PhD, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
How technical should aspiring AI PMs be?
I think I'll flip this question and say it's not about how technical, it's about how you shouldn't be afraid to get technical. So I can have someone that, you may show like a Google collab, like something simple, and then being like, oh God, what's this? I don't know. I don't want it. I reject it. So you don't have to be technical, but you need to be ready to get in and understand and jump in. That's because there's so many new technologies that come out, and your partners will want to investigate and will want your opinion. So you need to have influence, you need to have that awareness, and you need to not be afraid to jump in. Now, it doesn't hurt if you've, trained the model, or if you know the basics about, Python or something like that. But it's more about how open you are to being trainable rather than what you've already done, let's say.
You've gotten some really coveted jobs. When I talk to PM job seekers, which I do almost every day, they want to be AI PMs at Meta and Google. What is your personal approach to job searching?
Very good question. I think especially now, 2025, your online presence matters. Having a LinkedIn profile that really explains who you are and having a narrative for what you've done before is just so crucial. Here's an example. I had a student in my bootcamp, and he had a 3-year gap in his resume, and I asked what that was about, and he said, well, it had nothing that was related to product management. And he said, I was a sculptor. And I said, oh my God, you absolutely need to say you're a sculptor. What? He said, but it's not relevant to it. And I convinced him to add it. And then I told him, your narrative is you're an artist that understands the users. And now you're bringing in these two things together, and you can actually be an avatar's product manager or computer game character product manager. And this really, it was an aha moment. And he said, oh wait, I can say this. Or the other thing, in my current cohort, I have someone that was working for medical devices for hearing aids. And he's like, how do I switch to AI PM? I said, how do you switch? You are a wearables PM. And if you saw, Apple has now, the AirPods have a specific functionality for people that don't hear well, and it helps them. So it's about how you position yourself, and that online presence really needs to come through because it's important. And last thing I'm going to say, um, ask for referrals. Like if you don't get a referral, chances are way, way lower. And sometimes when I was looking, I would reach out on LinkedIn to the hiring manager and say, hey, here's who I am. Here's a role I found. Here's why I think I'm a fit. Let me know if interested. I already applied. But please don't ask for virtual coffees. Like virtual coffees don't. It's just not. They don't work.
And when you're doing this reach out, how do you find the hiring managers and how do you reach out to them? Do you use in-mail, personalized invites? What's your approach?
So LinkedIn has a jobs functionality, and you can see the hiring team. Sometimes it's a recruiter, but sometimes, especially for smaller companies, it's the hiring manager. And I send an email, and the title is, the job title and introduction. And trust me, if you send 20, even if 2 people see the message, you still have a better shot than not having send anything. There's also this wonderful website that not a lot of people know. It's called WellFound. It's the old AngelList job search tool, and they have amazing startup jobs. And it's a lot of, unicorns in there that are looking for their first head of product. It's all AI enabled. And it's just, that's a super nice resource. But again, you got to have your profile put together in a nice way.
Very cool. So the power of LinkedIn is really important to your job searching strategy. And you write content on LinkedIn. What's your thought about that? Should aspiring AI PMs be writing content to also optimize their LinkedIn?
I think they should, but if anything, for me, it helps me distill the noise as to how much information there's out there. So I kind of write so that it can make sense to me. Because that's how I work. I do think it's nice to see someone that's, a thought leader that has opinions, that is kind of adding in and providing for the community. I think that's nice, but it's not a necessity. If anything, maybe X, Twitter, might be a nicer thing because it's easier. It's, shorter messages than longer form content. But I have my Substack. You have your Substack. It takes so much work, so I don't know if I would recommend it to anyone that's not ready to get consistent with it.
So the meta process that you went through a couple years back, it's a very structured process. They have very specific rounds on product strategy and sense, on execution, on leadership and drive. How did you prepare for those?
A lot of mock interviews, and it's interesting because it's one thing to say, oh, I know this question, I answered in my head and it's fine. And it's another thing to say it out loud. And I tell people, you're giving a performance. Like it's literally a performance, answering interview questions. And actually, as you're saying this, I actually created a product sense GPT, like a little custom GPT that helped me prepare for my interviews. I wrote down the perfect answer that I thought in my head is the perfect answer. And then after having gone through all these examples that were online and mock interviews, I wanted to see what the perfect answer looked like for different types of questions. So I trained this and I said, okay, what types of questions can you answer? And it had 4, like, create product X for company Y, or improve product X for company Y. How would you design this for a startup? And if you say, let's say, design a smart fridge for, I don't know, Netflix, whatever. And you will see the perfect answer as per my template. So you can see first you start with the framing, which is the mission and why that question fits in the mission. What are the users? What are their use cases, the pain points? And then, the prioritized pain points for a specific user, solutions, etc. So I did a lot of that because that helped me absorb ideas and information so that when the actual interviews came, I was kind of like, okay, I got this. I did the same for the estimation questions too. Anyway, I shared this on LinkedIn at some point, and what's funny is that someone reached out to me and said, hey, I tried this during a live interview. It's not fast enough. I'm like, this is not meant for a live interview. This is meant for you to prep. Like, this is not. But there's AI tools that can help you along the way. So one is you need to give a performance. Number two is you need to have been exposed to so many different ideas and solutions so that when someone asks you something, you'll be like, oh yeah, I got this. Here's my idea. But yeah, mock interviews. And in the beginning, it was horrible. I was just so bad. It's just a disaster. But you get better, and eventually, it's kind of exponential. Like, yeah, I got this. I can do it.
Were those mock interviews with friends, with coaches? How did you manage those?
Uh, well, some companies are amazing, and if you ask the recruiter, "Hey, can you give me a mock interviewer?" They will set you up with a mock interviewer internally, and it's amazing because it's exactly the same setup. It's someone that is an experienced interviewer for that company that helps, and it's great. In my case, I think it was friends from my network, and as part of my academy and my bootcamp, we have a Slack channel, and there is a mock interview kind of channel where people interview each other. It happens organically. It's such a wonderful thing to do. Like it's no big deal to just reach out on LinkedIn to someone and say, "Hey, mind doing a mock with me?" It's just I actually have someone that needs a mock later today in like an hour or so. So, it's good.
That's awesome. So, a lot of PMs, they're looking at AI PM. What they're seeing is, first of all, there's a lot of listings for AI PM jobs out there. As a percentage of PM jobs, it's increasing, where it was like 0%, I would say nearly. A couple years back, now it's already up to 6 or 7% of all PM of open jobs today. And they're seeing that these AI PM jobs pay really well. Like often your AI PMs are making more than your other PMs at the same level. So for those PMs who want to become AI PMs, what's the right roadmap to get there?
The best way to become an AI PM if you're employed is your current company. Literally go to your manager and say, I want to be an AI PM, but not for the sake of being AI PM, but because you're excited about AI, because you have ideas, and reach out to a PM and say, hey, can I shadow you? Or do you have anything you don't need? Like any feature, I'm happy to take it, scope it out, push it from end to end. And you'll see if it's for you. Again, it's not for everyone. And you will get your hands dirty. You will figure out, okay, here's how it's done. So best way is your current company. And I mean, that's what I tell people that are not PMs in the first place. If you're a TPM or a program manager and you're doing some PM work, push with everything you got to get that first PM title in your current company. That's the key. Because you can go to another company and say, hey, I was a program manager, but I was doing some product work. It's not the same as saying, I was a product manager. And then if you're from an external company, sorry, if you're not employed and you're looking for your first AIPM job, here's a hack. There is a website called DevPost, and they have a list of hackathons. And most hackathons are about AI. And you can join in for free. Say, hey, I'm a PM looking for teammates that are technical. And you will get 3-4 people. You guys will build a prototype within a day or two. You may win, make some money, but at the end of the day, even if you win or not, you will have something to show for. You will add something to your resume and say, hey, I concepted, I led, this was a Microsoft hackathon. That shows the hustling I was talking about. That shows that you really roll up your sleeves and you're not afraid. And you get to meet some cool people from all over the world in these hackathons.
That's a great idea, hackathons. I hadn't really been recommending that to the people, so that's something really unique and new I'm hearing. What do you think about other side projects, such as, getting together a group of designer friends and engineering friends to build a little side project, or even just trying to use one of the AI tools out there, Cursor, V0, Replit Agent, even GitHub Copilot, even though it's godforsaken tool, and try to build something yourself. What do you think about those ways to try to break in?
As long as you wrap it so that it becomes an actual product and it has a reason it exists, yes. But don't use the tool for the sake of using the tool, if that makes sense. That makes you AI enhanced, which is great. But if you want to be an AI PM, you need to have concepted something for other people. Like something silly like that AI product GPT I put together, I put together an AI product GPT. It generates PRDs AI for AI. That had a nice product market fit. People started using it. I had something to show. So ultimately, it's not about being familiar with the tool. It's about doing something that might get some adoption in some capacity.
That's what I always tell people is it's better to actually try to also, if you can, monetize the tool because all of a sudden, if you say, okay, I have a tool that has $500 MRR, you know, then they're going to say, this is a true hustler. This is somebody who truly has knowledge about AI and starting to hit off those criteria that they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can people who are technical but want to break into AI PM, for instance, your AI researcher or your software engineer, how can they do it?
Again, you go in your company. Well, I'm very lucky because Google has a PM rotation program. That's great. And you essentially get to be a PM for 6 months in a team, and you see if it's for you. They see if you're for them, and then you figure out a conversion process after. But I think Meta has the RPM program, which is outstanding as well. So I see a lot of people that are technical in AI that apply for the RPM program and then get to kind of retain within teams. They don't guarantee everything is going to be about AI, but some of it might. Or, during the matchmaking process, you can say, hey, I'm only interested in AI specific program. So that's the best way if there is a rotation program. If there is no rotation program, recommend a rotation program and say, hey, I want to rotate. Here's companies that have done it. It's very successful. There's many people that would want to do this. So, you may kind of start an unofficial trend, if you will. And then if, of course, that's not the case, then you go to your manager, discuss your career aspirations. And I mean, if managers are good, they care about you and your trajectory, and they'll help you carve out an opportunity in their team or connect you with someone else.
How did your
Cross-functionally.
personal journey happen? So you were a data scientist. How did you break into product?
I was a data scientist, and then I joined Google, and there were no AI PMs at the time. But then eventually, when we moved away from this pure, you know, kind of okay, let's see what kind of quality we're getting with transcriptions and all that stuff. It was kind of like, okay, now we need product managers, and I think the team hired the first product manager, and I knew about the rotation program, and I reached out to the product manager and I said, "Hey, there's this program. I've been in this team forever. I'd love to, become a PM under you." My current manager supported it, so I did it, and I also had to interview, which was interesting. And yeah, eventually converted and have not regretted it since. But that's why I say the best way to start is in your current team. And if you're like, oh, my team doesn't have PMs, amazing. You can be the first PM. Like, I don't want people to get stuck in, such problems and blockers. Just unblock it, figure it out. Don't ask for permission. Just say, hey, I can be the first PM. Here's why we need it. Put the one-sheeter together, share it with your leadership.
High agency tends to work.
Especially during these times where hustling is so important, right?
So you interviewed at Google for a PM role twice. The first time as an internal transfer. The second time after you kind of boomeranged back to Google. Talk about the process of boomeranging back.
It's the same as everyone else. You apply. If there's a team that's has availability, they take you in, you interview. Yeah, and the problem is when I did it, it was a time where there were such few jobs. So, and what's interesting is it used to be the case that all these companies had kind of the generic PM track where you just get in, do the generic PM interviews, and then match make within the company. Whereas now we see these highly specialized jobs like AI platform for this startup or this database PM. So it's interesting because I think I found a role that I would fit me 100%, well, 100%, like very closely. And I was just lucky and very much at the right place at the right time.
What about people with no work experience? Let's say I'm a college student. I'm thinking about Marilee. I want to be like her one day. I'm thinking, oh, maybe I could major in computer science as an undergrad. Maybe I could also then go pursue a PhD like she did or a master's halfway through. That's one path. Another path I could maybe just go out and try to get another PM job first and then move into AI PM. What are the best paths if you are a student to break into AI PM?
There is this wonderful thing people are not aware of. It's from venture capital, from VCs, and it's called entrepreneur in residence. There's so many VCs that will say, come in, we'll give you some money. It's not going to be too much money. We'll give you a place to work. We will give you a network of people that have founded companies, mentors. We will matchmake you with a founder, and we will help you create a startup and raise funds. That is what I would be doing if I was just graduating and starting my career. Because it's amazing. It's kind of a safe environment where you get to really figure out what you want to do and meet people. And at the end of the day, even if you don't create a startup or anything, you'll have to show that you were an entrepreneur in residence working in AI. I think the AI fund has an ongoing opening about this. But yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity. So I would recommend that. Or the RPM, APM type of programs that look for graduates. And they have a limit. They say you can't have had more than 1 or 2 years of experience in PM. So I think they're highly competitive, but you never know. Why not apply to all of them?
So you wouldn't recommend going and getting a master's or PhD in computer science if your eventual goal is an AI PM role?
No. The PhD, if anything, it's interesting because I got my PhD and then I joined, these companies, and I realized, oh God, I'm older than a lot of people, and I'm way more junior than a lot of people. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But it was interesting that the years I spent in the lab could have been spent in me gaining experience, becoming a manager, getting more senior. That was interesting. I don't regret doing it. But I do appreciate I did it in Europe, because in Europe, PhDs are much shorter than in the US. So I think there are some people that PhDs may take 6-7 years in the US, especially if you have a taught component in the beginning. But for me, it took like 2-3 years, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, I don't recommend it. I think you should just jump in, start learning, and get in early on some super cool startup.
Okay, so startup experience or other PM experience over academic experience.
I think so.
Let's move on to the craft of product management. So every PM, whether or not they're building AI features these days, they're probably wanting to use AI tools. For your money, what AI tools should PMs be using?
Yeah. Because I create a lot of content online, I wanted to find ways to optimize the way I create the content and make my life easier, essentially. And I discovered Zapier, and it's a tool that's so underrated. Not a lot of people know of it, and whether it's for product management or your day-to-day productivity life, it really can change your life. So, look, you go to Zapier, and there's this concept of zaps where you can automate processes. So yeah, let me show you kind of what that looks like. It's really, 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 really interesting. So let me see. Let me create a new one. Start from scratch. So let's say my use case is I want something that can recommend ideas for me for my next post every single day. So this is the interface where you create a zap. They have this little copilot that can help you throughout this process, but I know the process, so here's how it works. First, you need to have a trigger, and the trigger you want is something that can run every single day. So you say schedule every single day, you continue. Trigger on weekends, I say no. Time of day, you can say something like whatever, 12 p.m. Okay, you say continue. Now, here is the interesting part. You go to the next thing. They have 7,000 apps and tools. And what is super fun is that there is Claude here. So this tool goes to Claude every single day to ask it a question without the need for you to do anything. So I can say action event, send a message, you continue. And here is what you're asking Claude. So what's automatically going to be asking Claude every single day. And here's what I did. I went to a recent post of mine. So I have this post and it was like, oh, I don't watch YouTube videos anymore because Gemini does for me. Da-da-da. And I copy it. And I tell Claude, I am a product manager, creates content on LinkedIn. Here's my recent post. Okay, and I can say this. And then here's the fun part. You say in the same style and length and tone, come up with something like a new, interesting topic. So you write this. They ask you which model you want, and you can say, the newest one, saying continue. And then you can also test this step so that you can see, if the connections work. By the way, the first time you set it up, there's some, you need to authenticate Claude to use Zapier, but it's fine. So here I tested it. And this is what I provided. And then it told me as an output, oh, I don't read long research papers. ChatGPT does. And, you can tweak it. But what's interesting is the next thing you can do is you can directly All right. And the next thing you want to do, you can literally connect it with your LinkedIn and have it post on its own. But I don't like it posting on its own, right? I want to review first. So you can say Google Doc. You can go to Google Docs, authenticate with your account, and you either append text to a specific document or you create a new document from the text that came in, which is what I like doing. And then you have the document name, which can be, I don't know, Zap generated content, and so on. So here is the text, whatever. You continue, you test it. So there are simple things like that they don't require any code that you can literally use and they can change your life. Or if you're a head of PM, right, and you want to have something more fun for your users, for your team, you can connect this to Slack and it can post like the riddle of the day or something fun to Slack or the PM inside of the day. And it just, creates a channel or it can send a direct message or a public channel, etc. So yeah, I love using this. Again, this is not for nothing PM specific, right? What's PM specific is the product sense GPT I was talking about. And I also created a AI product GPT. So at some point I was at work and I realized, you know what? I spend a lot of time just making copies of my PRDs and writing and changing the titles. And I realized, let me try to use these tools, see what happens. So I have an AI PRD that I uploaded to, on ChatGPT. And I said, you know what? Here's my template. And I want to create something that's specifically for AI-powered products. And I'm going to be providing the ideas, and I want you to really flesh this out. And I taught it to either say, hey, enhance my current product with AI for one-to-one products, or brainstorming new AI products for 0-1. So let's see. Enhance my current product with AI. It's going to ask you, okay, first of all, what's your product? Who are you focusing on? And then what is your goal for adding AI? And a good example could be something like, I am product manager at Netflix. I want to focus on binge watchers and I want to increase retention. Just that. So it's going to take that as an input and then it's going to look into my template. It's going to look into AI's superpowers that I've already talked to this about. And then it came up with 3 ideas. Like, look at this. AI-powered personalized binge mode. So an AI-driven binge mode experience that personalizes features like dynamic skip, mood-based playlists, smart break reminders. tells you what problem it solves, social binge watching, co-watch suggestions, and AI-driven predictive content recommendations. So then you want to choose one of these idea. Okay, let's go with one. And now it uses my AI PRD template and it's gonna generate the whole thing. And it doesn't do a perfect job, but if you copy this and paste it, it saves so much time, especially here in the beginning where it's like, here's the vision and here's the objectives and here's the feature and here's exactly, what we want to do and why. It even creates, the audience. It creates a competitor table, competitor analysis, tells you which KPIs to focus on. So it's this type of thing that you just spend time once building and then it just saves so much time. Look at this with links. So that's one other, use case I have for these AI tools that are saving my life.
So writing, it seems like, is one of the big use cases. And then with a tool like Zapier, potentially taking that writing, whether it's PRD, Slack messages, LinkedIn posts, and publishing out on kind of an automated fashion.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love observing all these new tools that come out and see how people are going about solving their own pain points. And I just love that everyone is sharing what they're doing with the community and, you can use it. Like anyone can use the PRD. It has like 10,000 uses or something like that. It's really exciting.
What's your take on Notebook LM?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely amazing. I came across it and I made a post on LinkedIn and it got like 4 million impressions because it's outstanding that it can generate an AI generated podcast with two people talking about something. And my friend is studying to be a lawyer and she literally uploaded 3, 4 books on it, like the PDFs. And then it generated the study guide for her, an FAQ for her. And now they have a cool new feature, which is they allow you to interfere in the podcast and ask a question and they live answer back as if someone is now calling you and me and, they're asking a question. It's just fascinating. And, if you take a step back from a strategic perspective, it's an AI agent that's built there to be your research fellow, your study buddy. And they've done such a good job. It's just phenomenal. I love this team. It's the labs team, and it's one of the best teams, I think, at Google. You do amazing work.
There's so many different places Google is building AI. We just talked about labs team. You're in Google Home. There's obviously the whole DeepMind organization building your foundational models in Gemini. There's so many other pockets of it. Can you just describe to us what is it like inside Google as an AI PM?
These big tech companies are so big and they have internal communities where, you can network and you can meet other folks doing your job and you can create circles and, support each other. And I just absolutely love it when companies really provide this sort of support. I think it's great to have a company where you can just reach out to anyone and say, hey, let's grab coffee, let's discuss what's on top of mind, how things going on your end, let's learn. Let's share resources. Let's make introductions. I think successful companies need to have this culture in order to keep people happy and in order to keep innovating. Because especially in a fast-paced domain like AI, you gotta have these strong bonds and connections and a network in order to be able to be efficient and innovate, as I say. So it's great to be a part of it. And all the companies I've worked for had this strong sense of community, which is important.
What's your process for determining when AI is actually the right solution to a given problem?
What I tell people is that you shouldn't use AI for the sake of using AI. You should only use AI if it's the best possible way to solve a user pain point. I was coaching this startup the other day, and they essentially have a travel app that generates an itinerary for you based on who you are and where you're going. And they told me, "Hey, where do we find enough data to train our model?" And I said, "Have you validated that this is a good idea in the first place?" And they're like, "Well, we first want to train it, see how it works." I said, "No, no, 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 no. It's a product. You have to just hard code the experience, get some feedback, make sure this is what people want, and then go ahead and worry about implementation. So, I mean, in the same way, I ask people and my students to know how, what AI can do for you. And I put this little table together. So on the left, you can see what the superpowers of Gen AI are. So learning from massive user content and automated content generation, knowledge synthesis, distillation, etc. On the right, you have more, traditional stuff like smart matching and NLU, NLP, automated workflows like the one we saw. So if the problem you have in hand for the users can be solved by anything else in an okay way, you don't need to go through and implement AI. But if AI is the only way to solve these user pain points and really impacting users, then go for it. So I think, to answer the question, just to summarize, you got to really understand the superpowers AI brings in the table, and only then even consider using AI. So let's not use AI for the sake of using AI. Let's not fall into the shiny object trap because, this is destined for a disaster.
Seems like a lot of us as consumers have seen that in products where they just shove AI into a product. It's like, what? This is worse than the other solution you had.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
One of the hardest parts of being an AI PM and just building AI products in general is thinking through your product strategy. What is your approach when you're putting together a product strategy? How do you come about it? What is your thinking process? And then how do you like to finally present it to people?
Very good question. I mean, AI doesn't really change the strategic thinking, right? But I think we always come down to thinking about the mission, what you're trying to achieve and why, who it's for. And then is AI going to help me get there faster, better, sooner? If I don't adopt AI, am I going to stay behind compared to other folks? I think there's a lot of figuring out what's happening in the landscape and looking into the competitors. And, that question comes up so often, which is, do you build or do you buy? But I tell people, if you want to ask yourself that, first you need to be 100% sure you want to adopt AI and get into this whole process, because this can change everything. This can kill your company. This can, it's just so important. So, yeah, I start with the mission, figure out whether it's a good idea or not. And my friend interviewed for director of AI PM at Apple. I think it was like a while ago. And the first question they asked was, okay, so what would you do with AI in our family of apps? Like that was the question, that broad. And she had to take a step back and answer in a strategic way and say, okay, well, why are we doing this? Is this the right time? Is this the right way? What do competitors do? And are there any external factors that should prevent us from getting into AI right now? How does our current stack look like? If you adopt AI, do you need to change everything? Do you have the infrastructure needed? Do you have the talent needed? Is it going to be worth it in the end? Can we sustain any hits if we don't? So it's all these, it's kind of a checklist you have to go through. But yeah, mission, I think, is the number one, and making sure you fulfill your mission at the end of the day.
Do you find yourself having to write a lot of strategy documents?
On every single thing I write, there's always a framing. And it's just so crucial to frame the problem and say, here's the problem, here's why it matters in the larger picture, and here's how you quantify this. You have to start like that, because if you don't start like that, you tend to lose sight. You get too much in the weeds, and you always need to keep coming back to why.
What are the common pitfalls you've seen in AI product development?
Let's see. There's a very interesting concept, which is the concept of the MVQ, which means the minimum viable quality. And there's no right or wrong as to when you're ready to take something out there in the wild. But the pitfall is thinking that you need to be perfect in order to launch, and you're gonna have spent so much money and effort on like data and all these things, and at the end of the day, you need to launch early and get feedback. If people are afraid of the user experience not being optimal, just gate something, tell people, hey, this is only for a few trusted folks, and we need your feedback. There's going to be hallucinations. I think on the first days of DALI, they were saying, hey, be careful, there's hallucinations, give us feedback. I'm now using ChatGPT's Sora to generate videos and OpenAI's Soras. And, it's great to see there's no more significant hallucinations. But yeah, it's definitely a strategy to open it up gradually to the public.
How do you see the role of product management evolving with AI?
So we're talking about the AI enhanced PM now. And what is great is that you can it's like having something that helps you jump faster and higher, and then you do more of the work then. So you spend more of your actual brain on things that matter versus doing the tedious things. So I think we're gonna have way more hacks like the ones I showed you, and we'll all have our own constellation of personalized tools and hacks that help us in our day to day, and it's gonna help us move faster, be more productive, and I don't know. At the end of the day, have more fun. Let's say. I also love, new ways to collaborate with other folks. And I don't think I've seen a lot of tools that can help folks collaborate with each other. I know that Notion had some little functionality, so I'm excited to see more agentic tools that can help me collaborate better with other people and get alignment. But um, yeah, I'm excited about the future of AI enhanced PMs.
The agentic part of it, I feel like, is the one that we keep getting sold. Like Dharmesh talking about agents will be the future. Even I think Mark Benioff recently talking about agents will be the future. But I personally haven't been using too much of those agents yet. Is the technology just not there? Is that coming, or have you been using them at all?
The technology is there, and I feel companies can finally fulfill the chatbot vision that they once had because hardware is there, software is there. And I just think, companies are still trying to figure out what an agent means for them. But, if you're using Grammarly and suddenly there's a little pop up and you go and it's like, hey, I think you should do this, that is an agent in a way. Or if, you drive a Tesla and it has the self driving and it's like, hey, I stopped or I'm turning right because, I want to go faster or something like that, that is an agent. So I think agentic AI is already around. It's just not as obvious because people, in people's minds, an agent is something that talks to you and, has this like voice at all times, but it doesn't have to be that. So we already have agentic AI, but we don't have multi-agents yet, like different agents collaborating with each other. A good example is I was trying to call my Wi-Fi, company the other day, and there was a wait time. And I had to wait on the phone, and I waited for an hour until someone picked up, and I didn't say hi immediately, and they hung up. So I'd love if they had an agent and I had an agent, and the agents can talk to each other and say, "Yep, someone is ready. Is Marilee ready? Yes. Okay, let's go." So I'm excited for the multi-agent era as well.
Oh gosh. Soon we're going to have agentic instructors and agentic newsletter writers too.
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe someone can teach my courses instead of me. I don't know.
What skills do you feel like product managers should focus on developing to stay relevant?
Explore and experiment. 2025 is the year of experimentation. Like, try out all these new tools, adapt them on your day to day. Don't be afraid to change your workflows and your processes. It's rough being in a job for 10 years and doing things a certain way. And then suddenly you're asked either by your company or, you on your own want to change something that's a very big part of yourself. So, yeah, don't worry about change, adapt it, and don't worry about admitting that, you don't know everything and you don't understand everything, and just ask for help from your community and go shadow people and do all these things we were talking about.
What excites you the most about the future of AI and product development?
How fast it is and how unpredictable it is. Because, it's been such a long time since I saw something and I said, oh my God, what just happened? This aha moment. I think Notebook LM is something that really created that for me. Or, Gemini, the new multimodal functionality where it can see what you can see as you walk with it. And it says, oh, here's what you're looking for. Or if you write a math equation, it's like, yeah, this is, some crazy math it can do immediately. So I think it's, how it surprises me and inspires me very often. So
I want to talk about Merrily for a little bit now. We've been talking so much about
yeah,
AI product management. So you are a mom. You have a full-time job at Google, which most people know it's not usually a 40-hour a week job. And you have courses. How do you manage it all?
I rely a lot on these AI tools. I find that for my courses specifically, I put together the content and the curriculum of what I wanted to teach. And I think it was that very first push that took a while. But then after it was kind of more, it came more organically. Like students would recommend little tweaks, so I would change them. It wouldn't take that long. Also, I now have a team that helps me. There's, I founded the AI Product Academy. I have a community manager. I have an admissions manager. I have a strategist, someone in growth. So I delegate a lot, and it's a wonderful, yeah, it's a side business that works well, and I do what I like most, which is appear on the live sessions and answer questions, and yeah, it works well. But yeah, AI tools definitely have helped me so much, so much.
What's your approach to building out this side business? When did you first decide, okay, I'm going to do this as a side thing? And then when did you decide, okay, I'm even going to hire a team and really double down, triple down on this?
It's interesting. I always loved education. Like when I was doing my PhD, I legitimately thought I could get in academia. I did an experiment. My MVP was I went on Eventbrite and I created a technical product management webinar for like 2 hours, and I charged, I don't know, like $20 per person or something. And I shared it somewhere. I didn't have any following then. And it got sold out within, I don't know, a few minutes. And, I went live. It was the first time I was running something live with so many people. And it was just so amazing. The energy and that interactivity with people that are there for the same purpose, which is to learn, was just so mesmerizing that I said, okay, I gotta have more. And I treated it like a product. And I realized, okay, so what would it take? And then I switched from technical product management to AI product management, which is my niche. And I put together Maiden's very first AI product management certification. And it was so nice to find this platform because, it kind of handles a lot in the back end, like, it's Stripe connections and the syllabus and all that stuff. And it made life so easy. So I did my first cohort January 2022. It was like a month before I had my baby. It was very interesting. And it was just wonderful. It was a cohort-based class, and, I had set an upper limit, so it wasn't many people. It was like 20, 30 people. And then I realized, okay, my priority is to maintain quality and user experience. And in order to maintain these both things, I can do it alone. So interestingly enough, from that cohort, there was this person that said, hey, I love what you're doing. Can I help you? And I said, actually, yes. So that's how I found team members, and it's people that are passionate about AI. And I realized that, we're better together. You just can't do it all. And, took a leap of faith with them, and they've been with me for like 3 years at this point. So it's been great.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, the average small business does not have that type of tenure.
Yeah, yeah. So no, it's great, and I'm learning as I go, and it's been the most rewarding, thing I've done, honestly.
How do you balance, and I've noticed you do this very tactfully, by the way. How do you balance having this side business with your full-time job? How do you handle the conversations at Google? How do you handle drawing the right boundary lines?
Oh, well, I schedule a lot of my posts. Like I will spend in the weekend, I'll stay like for 2 hours, and I will schedule things for like 2 months ahead type of thing. Sometimes I LinkedIn posts and I forgot what I had written, and people start, my phone starts getting comments. I'm like, wait, what is this for? I don't remember. So scheduling is a very important one. My newsletter on Substack, I schedule a lot there. And I only teach outside work hours, of course, or there is this async component for my courses that happen during work hours, but it's all automated. Like I don't do anything. So I just work smart, as they say. And or when I can't work because I'm at work, my team is active on Slack and responds to messages and all things. So there's a lot of planning, like a lot of planning, logistics and operations. But once you streamline it, I think it's kind of working. And Calendly is the best tool that exists ever because I use it a lot for, it's somehow synced to my work calendar as well. And it blocks the calendar when I work, but yeah, it really helps me be better at operations.
Yeah, and is there anything else you try to take in mind with the types of social media posts you're writing about or the types of topics you talk about?
I I am an educator, as I say. I like educating. Like today, I was thinking, you know what? That RICE framework for prioritizing features, I don't think it includes AI. So maybe we should change it a bit and add an A in there, um, just for the AI complexity. And I just come up with little ideas like this, and it really helps me because I can, I create a little graph, I write a little blurb and post it. So my thing is about education, and it's not about commenting, oh, what's happening out there. It's more like, hey, I like teaching. Here's what's in my head, and I like distilling it for you. And I think, if anyone is starting their creator journey, I think you gotta find your identity, and you shouldn't get influenced by what other people are doing. So my identity is teaching, educating. It's not pitching, commenting on, what's happening in the world. And yeah, I found what it's good.
Would you ever consider going full time as a creator?
I had tried it for 2 months, I think, and I it was good. It was great. But I will say, Bay Area, 2 kids and all that stuff, I needed some stability in my life. so so I don't think I was ready for, young kids and doing that. But maybe when they're a bit older, I will do it.
If somebody is an aspiring course creator, would you recommend Maven to them?
Oh, absolutely. They minimize the work and the effort that you need to do. And it's this wonderful community of instructors you get access to. It's a fantastic, fantastic platform.
How would you think about somebody who wanted to create a course? What would you recommend to them how they should think about, packaging a course and creating the content for it?
Experimenting, literally opening something for 20 people. The very first thing you want to do is create a form and post on your network and say, hey, what would you like to learn from me? Like just that. You'll get so many responses and you will say, okay, here's, what people would likely be interested in. I can talk about this. Um, and then ask them, do you want something like 2 hours? Do you want a 2-week thing, 3-week thing? I have a 6-week course and certification. And the reason it's long is because it has a capstone project portion where people can create their own, product and pitch it to VCs, like a demo day. But some people do 2 days. Like Shayez is amazing. He does a 2-day course that's wildly successful on the weekends. But yeah, you have to experiment and see what your audience wants.
Treat it like a product.
It is. It absolutely is. Yes.
How do you suggest someone market a course? It sounds like LinkedIn and Substack might be important marketing levers for you. Is Maven itself one with its lightning lessons? How are you thinking about getting students?
The first thing is making sure you have something that has a good quality. Like that's number one. If you're like, okay, I'm ready to open it up, get 20 people, 30 people to see what they have to see, improve it. Then get these people to recommend and refer other people. So that you can get like a little first degree network of some sort to start with. There are so many growth tactics and strategies. Maven for sure has a marketplace and they have like a training courses page that I was a part of. There are partnerships, with folks like Lenny had a partnership with Maven, and he featured a lot of courses. But yeah, I just like posting on LinkedIn and on Substack, and people find me through that, and then they find the course, and then they sign up eventually. Yeah, that's kind of my funnel. But I don't think I'm doing as much as I could. And I am kind of guilty of it. But yeah, I think I'm doing as much as I want and can handle right now.
While having a full-time job, indeed. I feel like you're doing amazing stuff. It's very fun to
Thank
see those
you.
things come across my feed.
And I meet great creators, right? That's the best part. Like I met you, I've met so many amazing folks.
When it comes to being a creator, there's courses, there's newsletters, there's YouTube, there's podcasts, there's so many millions of options. How did you land on courses?
Because I always wanted to be in education. Like it's something I always loved and it comes naturally to me. I tried the TikTok, sort of thing. It didn't work out for me. I tried Instagram. And I think you and I were talking about Instagram once.
Yes.
It just doesn't come naturally to me to create the reels, but writing does come naturally. And I'm actually writing a book as well right now on this topic. And, LinkedIn is a wonderful way to express yourself. And yeah, that's where I developed an audience. So I do this, and then I moved to Substack, and I'm still growing. It's actually I have 30,000 people, which is shocking. So I'm gonna continue with LinkedIn and Substack. That's my combination, let's say.
The LinkedIn economy is so powerful. There are so many people on this podcast that we've talked about that have created their entire businesses, some of them gone full time, others like you supplementing their income off of LinkedIn. I think it's probably unheralded just how much economic value it's creating.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
What are your tips for creators on LinkedIn?
Don't copy other people's styles. Don't copy other people's need. Just find who you are. And there's it's just so easy to get FOMO on LinkedIn because of like the titles that are massive and how people are positioning certain things. Just get in, do your thing, figure out, what your niche is and be authentic. Yeah, I definitely fell in the trap like many years ago of like going on LinkedIn and looking at, people's profiles. I was like, oh my God. Then I realized, you know what? It's, you have to bring your own identity there and create your own narrative. And ever since I did this, I never had that FOMO again. But it's so easy to fall into this trap. So that's it. Find your own niche. Oh, and also it's not gonna come like on a single day. Like if you post every day a week, you're gonna get 10 likes or 12 likes. What, 2 new followers, but you really need to stick through it to see any result. And even then, you shouldn't do it because of the audience. You should do it because it gives pleasure to you. Because if it doesn't, at the end of the day, like there's no reason doing it, and it's gonna come across in your posts as well. So it's yeah, it's interesting how this works. So consistency very important, and have no expectations. That's what I had. I had no expectations that anything would happen. And if anything, I was saying, "Oh my God, I'm so late in this, and there's so many people, and what am I gonna do? It's all saturated." And I realized, you know what? At the end of the day, I just wanna write, and I don't care if one or two or 10 or 100 people are gonna respond. But yeah, I met amazing people, and it's been amazing experience.
Let's move on to the lightning round. What is your favorite interview question of product managers?
Very silly. What's your favorite product, and how would you improve it? People prepare for all these very complicated things. So when they hear this, it's kind of like, wait, I feel people don't prepare for this question. So that's, yeah, I really like this question.
What's your favorite book with lessons for product people?
I really like Lenny's book. He took all his learnings from his newsletter and he put together that wonderful orange book. I think I have it somewhere, actually. Yeah.
And he donated the proceeds to charity, so you can feel good about buying it too.
Yeah. He's
What's a
great.
newsletter you anticipate hitting your inbox?
TLDR product. It's a wonderful newsletter. I absolutely love it.
What's a new product you've started using and enjoy?
Mill. I need to send you a link. There's a discount code. It's a trash can that's smart. And you put in all the food scraps and it composts them into dirt that you can use in your backyard. And there's no fruit flies and there's no smell. And I no longer take trash out because, it lasts 4 weeks worth of food scraps. It's unbelievable. So that's my thing.
That's amazing. I hadn't heard that one before. What product feature or product are you most proud of shipping?
Very good question. I think if you use this, the Google Home devices, there's so many speech features in there I was a part of. So I think, that the speech recognition angle is just fantastic. And it still amazes me how well it works. But yeah, I was a part of a massive team, so I can't get credit. But that's what I'm most proud about.
What's one particularly memorable product failure that you learned from?
I think it was something that I really wanted to do. It was some like a clubhouse type of thing, and I just couldn't find the product market fit. So it never launched. I had created a little prototype. It was for my own startup, and I'm glad I didn't launch it because it didn't make sense. It was before Clubhouse became a thing, and then when Clubhouse came out during COVID, I was like, oh, this is they did a good job there. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't launch it at the time.
Where can people find you online and how can they help?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, and I have my own Substack, merrily.substack.com. And I have my bootcamp AI product management certifications on Maven. And yeah, reach out. I always love meeting people and giving talks, or I'm looking for instructors that are willing to come give guest talks to my course. And yeah, let's talk about AI PM anytime.
Awesome. And if you guys haven't seen it, we wrote a newsletter piece together last year. It's some like 5,000 or 6,000 words. It's one of my most popular newsletter posts of all time. Marilee had a bunch of amazing insights. For instance, she mentioned that there are all these domain-specific types of AIPMs. We walk through her taxonomy of all of those types of AIPMs in the piece, and there's much more, so check that out. Marilee, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. That was so much fun.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Also, please consider giving us a rating or leaving a review, as that really helps other listeners find out about the podcast. You can find all the past episodes or learn more about the show at product-growth.com. See you in the next episode.